certainly the collapses of FTX, as well as other firms in the U.S., Voyager, Celsius, have emboldened regulators to do at least something about it and create the clear regulation and policy that many in the crypto industry have said is needed. Nevertheless, Senator Warren has created some crypto legislation that you disagree with. You wrote an op-ed for us about it. Tell us why.
So this bill, the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act, was initially introduced, co-sponsored by Senator Doc Marshall, a Republican from Kansas, last December. Congress turned over and it needs to be reintroduced. She essentially informed the public at the hearing last week that she intends to reintroduce it this spring. The problems with the prior bill still remain. Essentially what it does is it says U.S. software developers who develop crypto software and users in the U.S. of certain crypto software will be under FinCEN rules, because FinCEN will have to update its rules, whether they like to or not, and there's good reason to believe that they do not want to do this, that they would be classified as financial institutions. These developers and software users would be financial institutions under the Bank Secrecy Act, and that would require them to have anti-money laundering compliance programs. It would require them to KYC users. It would require them to monitor transactions and report suspicious activity to FinCEN, which is already drowning under data flooding in from traditional finance. Not only is it a massive recategorization of software development and software use in the United States with respect to crypto, it then requires the SEC, CFTC, and FinCEN, the Treasury branch, which does Bank Secrecy Act regulation and implementation, to now have a monitoring program that scrutinizes every registrant's compliance program. This is a massive bureaucratic undertaking. It is the mind reels at how expensive and how manpower intensive this would be, not to mention how burdensome this would be on regular financial institutions, money services businesses, and certainly crypto software developers in the United States and crypto software users, like miners and validators in the United States. It would be utterly suffocating. Fundamentally, this is unconstitutional. It compels speech because it applies to even hobbyist developers, not just people running businesses. Businesses are regulated all the time, including their speech. However, just hobbyists are generally out of bounds. This bill purports to regulate anybody developing or anybody using the software. It's unconstitutional on the First Amendment, their Fourth Amendment arguments, and fundamentally, there's zero indication that this would have any practical effect on illicit finance. We all agree illicit finance, or at least I agree that illicit finance is something to be taken seriously. I don't engage in what about arguments about TradFi or that it's such a small percentage. I think it's a topic that we need to engage with forthrightly. But this does not work. There is nothing critical about the United States in terms of software development or software use to these global ecosystems. You want to stop illicit finance on blockchain? Telling everybody in the United States they have to line up and register with the federal government is not going to solve that problem. There are things that are practically useful, blockchain analytics, getting government and law enforcement more engaged with private sector, getting the private sector, especially exchanges, exchanging information about hacks and the like, and being more responsive to reports of that stuff. All of that stuff is not in this bill. And so I think it is remarkable that so-called limited government types on Capitol Hill are actually looking closely at this and considering sponsoring it, because this is the furthest thing from a limited government bill. And I think those folks looking to co-sponsor it really need to either reconsider their position on it, or they need to be forthright about what this bill is, and they need to face up to the type of regulatory regime that this bill would introduce.
Well, the consequences of the crypto crash we've seen in the last year certainly have, we're seeing the consequences right now.
This is the echo of FTX.
In policy making. Yeah,
this
for
is the
sure.
echo of
Certainly
FTX, and
emboldened
people want to
them.
do something.
All right.
Yeah.
Bill, we got to wrap it there, but thank you so much. Of course, you can read more from Bill's op-ed on CoinDesk.com. That was ConsenSys Senior Counsel and Director of Global Regulatory Matters, Bill Hughes.